Hello everyone, in this series we will be going over how to make a Find the Markers game, just like this. Now this series was actually recommended to us by someone who goes by the name of Zazidoodoo, sorry if I said that wrong, on YouTube. And you can see their comment on the screen now. So we are going to be basing this game off of the original Find the Markers game on Roblox. Now as you can see in this original game here, we've got a spawn place, and we can go around and find markers, and once we collect them they get added to our inventory, so we know what ones we've collected and what ones we haven't. There's easy markers, there's medium markers, hard markers, and a lot more: insane, extreme, and markerous. So that is what we're going to be doing in this series. We're going to make a simple little marker game, nothing on the scale of this. I will link this project in the top link in this description of this video, so everyone please go check out this game, as without this game this series would not be happening. So please go check it out. And with that everyone, I will see you in the first episode where we will be creating the basics and setting up the project. So I'll see you then. Okay everyone, welcome to the first episode. Today we're going to get the basics sorted and we're going to get the project set up. So let's do this. So your first thing you want to do is open up Roblox Studio and then hit this new up here. And now you'll get templates for loads of games that you can start with. Now we're going to be making this game from scratch, so I'm going to click the classic base plate for now. And now as you can see we've got a new project made, but the project is named classic base plate. And we don't want that, so what we're going to do is we're going to click game settings, and then we're going to hit save to Roblox, and now it's going to ask us to title our game, so we can call it whatever we want. I'm going to call it Find the Marker just for now, and of course you can get a description over here. The genre, you can choose the genre, which for us would mainly be adventure, maybe a bit of town and city, it all depends. For now I'll just leave it as all. You can choose the devices you want to release on, and you can choose whether or not you want Team Create on. And I have already made a previous video on Team Create. You'll be able to find that video top right of the screen right now. So anyway, I'm going to disable that and hit save. Okay, and now our project is set up. Now if you go back to the game settings, you can do loads more, such as game icons, stuff like that. But I'm going to leave that out for now. And I'm going to set up the basics. So let's set up a spawn point for the players. So under the home tab up here, you will see part. Now what we can do is we can open this. You'll see we've got blocks, spheres, wedges, corner wedges, and cylinders. Now I'm not going to go through modelling too much in this series, so I'm just going to quickly make a very basic spawn location. So I'll put a timestamp on the screen now. You can skip to if you would like to just skip straight to making the spawns. Okay, so what you can see is by clicking this, we get a part up here. Now you can hit F on your keyboard to just straight away look at it. It will zoom you to it. And if you don't see what I see, make sure you go, so if you're seeing a screen that looks something like this, you want to hit view, and then you'll see Explorer and Properties. Just turn both of those on and you'll see these, side menus here. Now on your right, this Explorer, I'm going to actually hit Model and then Scale, and we can drag this out to scale it to our liking. Now as you can see, I'm scaling quite like blocky and not smoothly like that. So the way you can change that is if you want to scale blocky, you'll see this little move, just tick that and change the amount of studs you want to scale by each time. So I'm scaling by 3 studs. Under size here in the transform, I'm going to set that to 20. We'll leave that as 1 on the Y and then 20, so we get a nice plate like this. We could make it even bigger, but for now it will do. I'm going to rename this part, so to do that you can click the part and hit F2 or right click and rename, and I'm going to call this base spawn. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into model, and you'll see this spawn button here. Let's click that and it will bring it into our game. And as you can see, it's quite big, so I'm actually going to make this, 100, 100. That'll fit a lot more spawns in. And we could also scale this down, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to scale this spawn down, and we can just make as many spawns as we want. So I'm going to turn on the move tool, hit Control D, or you can right click the spawn location and duplicate, and I'm going to bring it over, and just keep doing the same. So we've got an equal distance between each spawn. And of course you can do this for as many spawns as you would like in your game. Now I'm going to select all of these spawns and the base spawn, and I'm going to hit Control G or right click and group. This will put it all into one model. So then we can rename this model. Remember, names F2 or right click rename, and I'm going to call it spawn. Just like so. This is my little spawn area. So now, as you can see, we've got these spawns here. Now if you don't like the way they are, you can open these up, remove the decals. Now what you can do is you can select all, so hit this top one, hold shift, select the bottom one, and you can go over and you can change the colour of them if you fancy doing that. So, you know, we could change the colour, or I'm going to hit transparency and click 1, and then they won't even be able to be seen by the user. But I like having them there. I like having colour, so I'm going to make it a nice kind of greeny colour, like that. I like that. And then this base plate here, base spawn, I'm just going to make it maybe blue, I don't know. So there we go, that is the basics I wanted to get done today. Just kind of setting up the project ready. So if we was to hit test and then play now, we will spawn on one of these green pads. It will be random. So yeah, we're here, spawned on this one. Now if we play again, it will spawn us on a different one. And of course, the more players you're going to have in your game, the more different, like the more spawn pads you're going to want. So there we go, that is done now, everyone. So thanks for watching. I hope you did enjoy this video. In the next episode, I think we're going to get started on developing a map, just so that the user can kind of walk around. So there's actually places to hide these markers. We're going to be designing a map for our Find the Markers game. And the goal here is so that we can have a nice small area for the player to walk around in to find some markers. So as you can see, we've got our spawn here from last episode. Now let's actually move this over to the middle of this base plate. Do that by setting the origin position to 0, 1, and let's say 0. That'll set it to the center. Now the reason I set it to 1 is because the thickness of the base spawn is 1. So if we set this to 0 here on the origin position, it will be in the ground because it's 1 thick, which is the same as the base plate. So let's then add 1 to our origin position, and it will position it 1 stud above the base plate, which is what we want. Okay, so now that we've got our spawns, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some parts to our project and just place them jotted around for now. So I'm going to put one kind of in the middle, or what looks to be in the middle of this spawn here. Now this video is kind of me showing you a bit of modelling. Now you can go and do your own creativity here and design the map to your liking. I'm just designing a map on a video to show you the basics of Roblox modelling. So once we've got a part down here, we can go into model, click scale, and we can scale it to be however big we want. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a little path. I'm going to make a little path for the player to walk on. Now as you can see, that I would say that's thick enough for a path. Let's bring it out a bit. So as you can see, this scale tool simply makes the part bigger or smaller. So now of course we can go into our properties, which if you don't remember, you can click view and then properties to view it. And we can find the colour at the top under appearance. I'm going to select colour and I'm going to make it maybe a yellow colour. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this part by right clicking and renaming, or you can press F2, and I'm going to rename this to path. Now what I'm going to do is hit Control D or right click and duplicate, and you can move this part around. Now rather than moving this around with my mouse like so, what we can do is use the move tool. So if we go into under model again, let's click move. Now we can move it forward and backwards, left and right, and of course up and down. Now I want to move it to the left here to get it on the other side, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drag it just so it is on the other side like that. Duplicate this again, and this time I'm going to use the rotate tool. Now as you'll see, we get some funky looking shapes here, kind of like an atom. You'll see 3 different circles, a blue circle, a red circle and a green circle. The blue circle rotates it along the Z axis. The green circle rotates it around the y-axis, and the red circle rotates it along the x-axis. Now what I want to do is rotate it along the y, so it will face 90 degrees, like that, to put one on these top two sides up here. Now what we can do is under model, you'll see this rotate button. I'm going to tick that, and you'll see a number here. Now I'm going to enter in 90, hit enter, and we'll be able to rotate and snap it at 90 degrees, which is what we want. So now let's move it. Now I'm going to duplicate it again, and this time just bring it over to the opposite side. And that's that. So now we've kind of got this little cross looking shape. Now what I'm going to do is grab all these paths by clicking the top path in the hierarchy or explorer, and then I'm going to hold shift and select the bottom path, and it'll select all of them. Then we can right click and group, and we'll get a model. Now we'll rename this model to paths. Now as you can see, we've kind of got 4 areas we can make here. So we can have one bit of land here, one there, one up here, and one here, which is why I like this kind of design. What we can do is go to part, add in another part here. Now I don't really want this to be a very thick part or very long part. I just kind of want it to connect up these corners. Now I'm going to rename this part to edge, and I'm going to duplicate it and bring it across. Now I'm going to grab these, duplicate them, bring them over to here. I'm actually going to rotate these by minus 90 degrees. Now I'm going to select the paths, and under colour you'll see we have material, and a minute it's plastic. We can change this so we can have an icy material, we can have a fabric material, we can have a foil material. Anyway, I'm going to now put these edges into the paths, and there we go, we've got kind of like a little square base plate. Let's grab some land to put into these 4 squares. So let's add in a part, we'll just put it in the middle, and I'm going to place it in a corner somewhere, and just kind of fill up this area. Now you can scale it down a bit if you want. If we maybe make that 0.5 studs, you can maybe make it a bit thinner, which is what I'm going to do. Put that back to 1. And now I'm going to duplicate this again, just so I can scale it into this corner here, this side. Select both of these parts, group them, and rename the model to land. No, actually I'm going to rename this to sector 1, and then I'm going to group it again and rename it to land. Now what we have here is land, and then sector 1, which is of course this area here. This is a nested model, so if we duplicate this sector 1 and we move it over here, can rename this to sector 2. Actually I'm going to have to rotate this a bit, like so. Now what we've got is 4 sectors of land. Sector 1, I'm going to kind of make maybe a forest area, so I'll paint it maybe a dark green. And then I might make the material something, maybe grass. As you can see, we've got a grassy material now, that looks nice. Now in sector 2, which is over here, I might make this one a desert. And then in sector 3, maybe what we can do is we can maybe make like a snow area, and then maybe in sector 4, kind of like a rocky area maybe. So now what we've got is 4 sectors. So with that everyone, I'm happy for this episode. I'm pretty happy with how it's turned out. This is our land, this is what it's going to be looking like. Of course we can make tweaks as we go along, but I'm pretty happy with this and how it's turned out. Hey everyone, today we're going to be making invisible barriers so our player cannot walk out of the map. Now, one thing I forgot to touch upon last episode was, let me open up my Explorer and properties. I forgot to show you about anchors. Now, because if we hit play, you're going to see, notice a very big problem. Things are going to kind of glitch. If we're walking, jumping on them, it's kind of hard to notice, but you kind of see things just don't really, as you can see, it's kind of at an angle, and things are kind of breaking. We're going to do something called anchoring. So if we select our land, our paths, our spawn, and our base plate, and hit model, we'll see an anchor button. Let's click that and then hit play. And you'll notice this won't happen. Now what anchoring does means it is stuck in the world position. So it is locked to this position that's in here. It cannot move no matter what. So now let's hit model and create these invisible barriers. All we're going to need for this is a part. And I'm actually going to show you unions here. And we're just going to scale it. Now I'm going to do this using a union. I don't recommend it, but I kind of want to show you how unions work. So I'm going to cover this entire platform and then make it very, very tall, like that. Duplicate it. Now let's go inside here so we can kind of see what we're doing. Under model, I'm going to move this by 2 studs. So I'm going to move it like that. And let me actually have a look. So I think these are 4 thick. So let me move it by another 2. Yeah, that's it. Kind of actually on the edge of this yellow platform. So once again, 4 on here. So I'm going to move these by 4. That will make it perfect. It's there, and 4 inwards on here. Now what we've got is a smaller square inside of a bigger square. I'm also going to bring it down 4 from here. And I'm going to extrude it down from underneath as far as we can go, actually under the base plate. Just to make sure the player can still walk. Now you'll see why I'm doing this. Because what we can do, this square that's inside, if we hit model, you will see these buttons, union and negate. We're going to hit negate. And what this will do is if we hide this other part, you'll see it's actually turned red. Now, the reason we've done that is because what it means is if we select another part now, as well as this negative part that you can see here, it's going to cut a hole in that part. And let's actually go in here and you'll see it in action. We're going to hit the negative part, hold control or command if you're on Mac, and hit the other part. And up here we're going to hit union. And you'll see what we've essentially just done is cut a big hole inside of this square. So what I'm going to do is rename this union barrier. And now under the properties, make sure you have something called can collide on, which basically means players can bump into it. Now what we're going to do is you'll see transparency. If we make that 1, the wall will become invisible. Let's hit model and then anchor. And then if we try it, I'm actually going to make this 1 under the transparency. That will make it completely invisible. You will see that as soon as we walk over to it, boom, we cannot walk out of the map. That is it. We're stuck between the bounds of the map. We cannot get out. So that is all I really wanted to show you today, everyone. Hey everyone, today we're going to make obstacles to hide our markers for our Find the Marker game. So I'm going to start in the grass area. I'm going to put down a part. And to be honest, with obstacles, it's kind of all about using your imagination to create hiding spots. Now I'm going to kind of create some obvious hiding spots and kind of harder to find hiding spots. So like here, I'm just going to kind of make some steps. And up here, I'm going to have a marker. Simple like that. That's going to be one of the easy ones to find. Okay, what I'm going to do now that I've made this, I'm going to select it. I'm going to hit Control G to group or Command G. I'm just going to leave it as model for now. Now I'm going to make a folder in the workplace and I'm going to rename it to hiding places. I'm going to drag this model into the hiding places like so. This just allows us to have a folder to keep everything nice and neat. Now for the sake of the video, I'm also going to use some toolbox models just to help us speed things up a little bit. Now I'll leave links in the description to all the models that I use. Okay, so I've added a few models into here. Now once we've got all our obstacles and stuff in here, we're actually going to make the hiding places. So I'm not going to bother making obstacles for all 4 quadrants here. That is something that you can do as you develop your game. But for now I just want to get some basic hiding places in here. So to do that, I'm just going to add in a part and I'm going to make it a cylinder. I'm going to rotate by 90 degrees. So I'm going to go up to model, click rotate and change this to 90. Hit rotate here. And on the Z axis, I'm going to rotate it by 90. Bring it up. I'm also going to scale it out by 4 studs. Actually, I'm going to scale it out by 2 studs, sorry. So we've got something that looks a bit like that and like that. Could make it thinner. Depends on how easy you want to be able to find it. I'm going to make it like that. And I'm going to just start hiding some of these. I'll put 1 there. And what we're going to do is in the workspace, we're going to add in a folder. And we're going to call these markers. Now when it comes to naming the markers, we're going to do that as we go along. So here I'm just going to rename this to cave marker. Now you may change some of these names as you go along. Now if you have a special mesh you want to put on your marker to give it like its own design, you can click add a mesh and a special mesh, and you'll have to change some properties here. But if we go into the mesh, you'll be able to add your mesh so that the cylinder looks how you want it. For now I'm just going to leave them as different coloured here. So I'm going to put this one as grey, seeing as it's in a cave. We want it to kind of blend in. And I'm just going to keep making these markers here. Okay, so I've made a few markers now. It's not a lot, but it will do for the time being. As I say, I've only made markers for this one quadrant. If you want them on all 4 quadrants, then you can go ahead and do that, but I feel like it's just going to take up too much time in the video. What you want to do after you've made all your markers, you want to select the top marker and the bottom by holding shift and clicking. It will select all of them. And then you want to go into the properties and make sure that they are anchored and have can collide and can touch turned on. Now if we hit play, I need to anchor this, but as you can see we have markers now. So marker there, I've got a marker in this cave. Now as I say, I've used models. You can be a lot more imaginative, but I've got a slider marker here, and I've even got one here, hidden behind here. So that's that. Now in the next video we're going to make it so the player can actually touch these markers and collect them. I say collect, we won't have an inventory just yet, but we will do at some point. Hello everyone, today we're going to be making it so you can pick up these markers and collect them. Now to get started, we want to go under server script service and add in a script. We're going to rename this script to, for now we'll call it leader stats. And in here we're going to create data which will tell people how many markers have been collected by the player. So to do this we need to create some variables. But first, before we can create these variables, we need to create a function that will be called only when players join the game. So to do that we say game.players.playerAdded : connect function PLR, or you could put player, anything that so you know that it's a player. I'm just going to put PLR, short for player. Now what this means is any code that is inside of here will be called once a player joins the game. That is all this means. So in here we want to say local leader stats, as that will be the name of where our data is going to be stored inside the player. We're going to set that to an instance.new, and I'm going to put it inside of a folder. Now what this will do is it will create a brand new folder, and we're going to put a comma after this folder and put PLR, and this means it will create a new folder inside of the player. Now what we can do is say leader stats, which is this new folder, .name equals leader stats, like so. It must be spelled exactly like that, all lowercase. And that's that. We've now got a folder in our player called leader stats. Now if we drop down, we need to create a new variable, and this will be the number of markers collected. I'm going to call this markers found equals instance.new, and this will be an int value, and we're actually going to put this inside of the leader stats. Now we're going to say markers found dot name equals, and I'm going to call it markers found, and by default we're going to say markers found dot value equals 0. Now this means that they will start with 0 markers found. And there we go. I'm not going to close the script yet because we're going to be coming back to it later. But if we now hit play, you'll see we have markers up here, 0. We've not found any markers. Now by the end of this video, we will be able to go up to a marker, hit it, and the markers found will increase by 1. And this marker will disappear. So to do that, what we want to do is go over to leader stats. And we're going to need to create a marker variable. Now, for each marker will need its own value. This will be a true or false value to decide whether or not we have yet obtained it. Now, a really easy way of doing this, rather than creating local variable blah blah blah, local variable blah blah blah, we can simply say local markers equals that. And by that, I mean these 2 curly braces here. This creates an empty table. Now what we can do is say for I, v in pairs. Now I'll explain this in a minute, but what we want to do is say workspace.markers : get children do. Now what this means is for the number of items inside of the markers folder, we are going to loop through this code here. So there'll be some code, and for each item we'll loop through it. I is the index of the item and V is the actual item. Now I'm actually going to rename these so they have spaces in between their names, just to make it look nicer when we actually have the inventory. And now what we want to do is add the item, add the marker to the markers table. So we can say table.insert, and then in here we actually need the table, which will be markers, and then comma, and the item we are adding, which in our case would be V. But we don't want to save the actual object, we just want to save the name. So we'll say v.name. So by the end of this, we're going to have a table full of the names of each of the markers. Now once we've done that, we want to create another for loop, which this time will go through each of the names and add a new Boolean value, which is a true or false value, to the player, which decides whether or not it already exists. So I'm going to copy this local leader stats couple of lines up here, come down and paste that in again, and this will be called markers. Now we already have a table here called markers, so we'll call this markers folder, like that. And once again, the exact same as the leader stats, it's going to go in the player, but we're just going to call it markers folder instead. In fact, we can get away with just calling it markers. Don't need the markers folder, as long as it is a folder up here. Now this is where we're going to store all of our marker data. So we're just going to copy all of this up here and paste that in. Now rather than this workspace.markers.getChildren, we are simply going to do markers. Now rather than this table.insert here, I'm just going to print markers, open bracket, I, and then what this will do is for each item in the markers table, it's going to print the name, so it's going to print the index of whatever we're currently on. So as you'll see, it should print bouncy marker, cave marker, podium marker, sliding marker in that order down into our output down here. Okay, it wouldn't be in the order, sorry, that was my mistake, but it will still print each of our markers, which is what we want. So now if we go over here, we can say local new marker equals instance dot new bool value, comma, and here will be the markers folder. Now it's basically going to be the same as this markers found up here, but we're going to say new marker. There will be a slight difference, you'll see in a minute. Dot name equals markers I, like so. Now as you saw when we printed out this markers I, it printed each marker name. So what this will do is create a new boolean for each marker name, and then we're going to say new marker dot value equals false. If we hit play, what you'll see is under the player we've got a markers folder with 4 true or false values in for each of our markers. Now what we can do is add even more markers. We can add as many as we wanted. So say I added a new marker and I called it test marker for now. I'll just call it test marker, and we hit play. You'll see we will get test marker as well. So you can see it just makes it nice and easy for when we add new markers. We don't have to keep going back and adding more variables. Let's make it so we can actually touch this marker and pick it up. Okay, so now we need to go under one of the markers. For now I'm just going to go under the bouncy marker and add in a local script. Inside of this local script, the reason it's local means it only happens on the player's side, the client side. So we can make the marker disappear only for the player and not for everyone else. So to do this, we want to say script.parent, which will be the bouncy marker over here, dot touched, :connect, function, and then hit as well. Hit is just an argument we have to pass in. And this will be the part of the player that hits the marker. Now what this will do is this is a function which any code in here will be called every time something hits the object. So now I say something hits the object, that can be anything, another object can hit the object. So we need to verify it's a player hitting the object. So to do that, we need to say local player equals game.players :get player from character hit.parent. Now we'll say if player then, and this will only run code, this will only do anything in here if it's actually a player touching the part and not another object. Now what we want to do is say script.parent.transparency equals 1. That will make it invisible, or transparent is the technical term. We also want to say script.parent.canCollide equals false, and that will make it so you can't collide with it anymore. Okay, so everyone, I actually made a slight mistake. I was meant to put in a normal script in this bouncy marker as well. Sorry, this is my mistake. Copy all of this code and put it into the normal script. Just remove this .transparency and .canCollide lines here. In here, we are meant to fire an event, which we then capture in here to make it invisible. So you can remove all of this shenanigans in the local script. So we've just got transparency and CanCollide. Sorry, this is my mistake. Now in the bouncy marker, we're going to add in a remote event, and we're going to call it hit. And then what we want to do is in this script, where we've got if player then, and we want to say script.parent.hit fire client, and then in here we'll put player, and we can close that now. And then in the local script, we want to say script.parent.hit.onClientEvent connect function like so, and then we put all of this in. Now this is quite hard to understand at first, it looks quite confusing, but if you want me to do a separate video on remote events, I certainly will. Okay, right, and this should be the last mistake I made, I promise. What we want to do is under replicated storage, we need to make a new folder, and we're going to rename it to marker events, like so. We're going to drag this hit into marker events, and we're going to call it bouncy marker, or whatever the name of your marker is, just this time without any spaces. Instead of calling script.parent.hit, we're going to call game.replicatedStorage.markerEvents find first child, and then this will be script.parent.name. It's the name of the marker, like so. Oh, sorry, you do want a space in this marker here. My bad. You want it to be the exact same name as your marker up here, and we're gonna keep the rest the same for now. Other than we're gonna say player comma part, but rather than part, it will actually be script.parent, like that. Okay, now we've got to get the local script. I'm going to right click and hit cut, and then we're going to go down to starter player scripts, and we're going to right click and paste into. Now in here we're going to say, rather than we've got script.parent.hit, instead we want game.replicatedStorage.bouncyMarker.onClientEvent::connect. And then when we've got these brackets after function, we want to add part, and rather than script.parent, we'll just say part, like that. Now if we test it, it should work. Now I really do apologise for this video being a lot more complicated than it should have been. If I now go over and hit it, as you can see, it disappears. Now you will see our markers doesn't actually increase here, our marker value. And if we go under markers and bouncy marker, you'll see it's not gone to true. Let's fix that up quickly. That is very quick. Under our script, after we've called this fire client, all we want to do is say player.leaderstats or markers found, as it was called markers found, like so. Now we can't do a dot markers found because there's a space in it, so rather than dot we have to do these square brackets and markers found, like that, and then dot value plus equals 1. And then we'll also say player.markers, because remember, if we go over to our leader stats, we've got markers as a folder here. So player.markers, and then remember the marker name, so remember it has a space, so we have to use these square brackets. It's called bouncy marker. We could put bouncy marker, or we could do find first child, because remember this script is a child of the marker. We could just do find first child and then script.parent.name, which is the name, so the marker, bouncy marker. And then we want to say dot value equals true. And now if we hit play, we might notice a bug with our markers going up more than one. Yep, as you see, it got up 27 times. But the best way of doing that is adding something called a debounce. So if we go in the script, at the top here, we'll say db equals false, and then after this if player, then we want to say if db equals false, db standing for debounce, then we'll call all that script and end here. But straight after this false, we want to say db equals true, so then it won't call again, and we're only going to set debounce to false again straight at the end. db equals false. Now this still might encounter a few problems. If it does, there is an even better fix we can use. So let's just double check. We should be able to collect it, and it should only got 1. No, so that's halved the amount it's gone up by, pretty much. So what we can do is, before this db, we can wait a couple of seconds. I mean, it doesn't matter how long we wait, we're not going to be able to hit it again anyway, so we can. I'm just going to put wait 5. The higher you wait, the better. They're not going to be able to hit the marker again anyway once they've got it, so it doesn't really matter what number you put in there, as long as it stops you from getting more than 1 point. There we go, and that's it. And as you can see, our markers has gone up to 1, and if we go under markers, our bouncy marker is true and the others are all false. So that's that, and then all we need to do is copy the script, paste it into each marker, and we don't need to change anything in the script because we've tailored it to the name of the part it's under. That's it for there. And then we just need to add some more events. So we've got a cave marker, we've got podium marker, and we've got a sliding marker, like so. And then under our local script here, we can copy that, paste that 3 more times for each of our markers. So we've got cave, podium, and sliding, like so. And there we go. And that's it. Now if we hit play, we should be able to get any marker we want. So I'm going to open up my player and open up markers. So this is the podium marker. If I collect that, you'll see our bouncy markers all false, our podium markers true. We should be able to collect the cave marker, and our markers found will go up to 2, as you see it does, and the cave marker is true. And that's the same with all of them, it works. So that's all I wanted to show you today, everyone. And as you can see, sliding marker, there's a problem with that because we need to rename this with a space in it. And then there's podium marker as well. Oh, sorry, bouncy castle marker. And there we go, that's it. That's all I wanted to show you today. Now the reason I'm having problems is because my sliding marker doesn't have a space in it. But that's all fixed, and there we go. So everyone, that is our markers are now working. Hey everyone, today we're going to make a data store for our game so that our markers can actually save. Now before we start, you should probably know that data stores are quite problematic and they work for some people and don't for others. So make sure if you get any problems with your data store, make sure the script matches exactly, and make sure that you have no errors in your output. And if you still can't get it to work, then just leave a comment and we'll see what we can do. Okay, so let's make this data store. Now what we want to do is under server script service, we need to add in a new script, and I'm going to rename it to data store, and we need to create a local data store variable. In this variable, we are going to get the service for our data store, and we're actually going to make a data store. So local DS, which can be short for data store, is going to be equal to game:get service data store service, as that's where we can actually get our data store by doing :get data store. And in here you just want the name of your data store. I'm going to put tutorial. Now if you rename this in the future, so all your data will be saved to the tutorial data store. If you decide to wipe the data in the future, you can just make a tutorial 2, just change this, and all the data will be reset. And if you want to go back to the old data, just change it back to what it was, like so. Anyway, I'm going to call this tutorial 1, and let's drop down. Now we need to create a function which will be called when a player joins the game. And now, by now, that's quite a common function. We should know how to do that. Game.players.playerAdded :connect function, and then player. Now, just in case you are unfamiliar, the player is the player that's just joined the game. That's who's being passed into here. Now, what we're going to do is just add wait, like that. And this will wait, I believe it's 0.03 seconds. and it just creates a small amount of time before our script actually runs, so it doesn't run as the second, the instance the player joins the game. It waits like a tiny bit of time. Now we need to create a player key, so to do that, local player key, and we're going to set it equal to id underscore dot player dot user id. Now this will give each player their own player key when they join the game, and that's what we're going to use to save the data. Now we need to create our save values. These are the things we're going to save. So if we open up our leader stats, you'll see we've got these for loops here which create our markers. So let's go into our markers, and you'll see we've got markers here. So what we want to do is create a save value for each of these. Now we could use a for loop, however it won't always give you the same order. I mean, it most likely will, but sometimes it might go a bit wrong and not give you the same order, so that kind of messes up the save data. So what we're going to do instead is create an individual variable for each marker. So local save value equals player dot markers dot bouncy marker. In fact, actually bouncy marker's got a space, so we have to use these square brackets like so. Okay, that's the first one. Now I'm going to copy that line, because there's no point in retyping it out, and just paste it. For the number of markers you got, you want to paste those save values +1, and we'll go over that in a minute. So this is save value 1, that'll be save value 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now 2 is going to be cave marker for me, 3 will be podium marker, and 4 will be sliding marker. Now if we go back over to our leader stats, you'll see we actually have a markers found. We want to save that as well. Now this will actually be in the leader stats, so player.leaderstats dot, or it's got space, so it'll be markers found, like so. These are our 5 save values. If you've got more markers, you're going to have a lot more save values. Now, sorry if this kind of gets clustered, it's just the safest way of doing it. I didn't want to risk anything unsafe, because people will then get a lot of problems and it will create a load of errors. So what we want to do now is create a get saved value by doing local get saved, and this is where we're going to get our saved data. To do that equals DESC, remember our data store variable we made up here, colon get a sync, and now we've got to put the player key. This will retrieve the player's data. Now if there is data, so if get saved, then if there is data, we want to say save value 1 dot value equals get saved 1. Now this will set the data of save value 1, the value of it, to our data in the get saved. Now we want to copy that and do it for the number of save values we have, in our case 5. So 2, 3, 4, 5. Get saved 2, 3, 4, 5. Like so. Now we're going to have to add in an else just under here. And now we've got to actually save the numbers. If there is no numbers saved, we have to save them. So to do that, local numbers for saving, so we're going to make a table to save the numbers, equals save value 1 dot value, comma, save value 2 dot value, and we just got to keep doing that. So what I'm going to do is copy that like so, and then we can just keep pasting it in. 3, 4 and 5, so save value 5, save value 4, save value 3, 2, 1, like so. Perfect. Okay, now you want to type ds colon get a sync, player key, and numbers for saving. So what this will do is, if we don't have any saved data on the player key, we're going to retrieve it manually, basically. That's kind of the best way of describing this. Now we're done with our player added, we just need a player removing. So game.players.player removing colon connect function player. So exact same as player added, it's just player removing. And now we need to say ds colon set async, this is where we're going to save the data, id underscore. Now make sure this here is the exact same as this up here. If it's not, it will not work. And then dot dot player dot user id. And now we have to create a table for our save values. So I'm going to say local save values equals table, and it's going to be each item here. So I'm actually going to copy these save values, paste them down here, just so we've got access to them down here as well. And then what we need to do is save them. So it'd be save value 1 dot value save value 2 dot value, etc. for all of them, 3, 4 and 5. And then, well, after this comma, we literally just put in our save values. And just like that, it should now work. Now, before you can test this, hit Game Settings, go to Security, and enable Studio Access to API Service, and save. That has to be on, or this will not work. If we now hit play, you'll see we can walk around. Let's go collect our marker. I still need to anchor this here, so let's collect this marker here. If we now go under our player markers and our podium marker, it's ticked. Let's get one more marker just to make sure. Let's get the cave marker. We've got 2 markers collected and the cave markers ticked. If we now stop the game, you'll see it takes a little while to stop. That's a good sign. It's doing something. If we now press play again, you'll see we have 2 markers collected, so that's saved. And you will see if we go in our markers, cave markers ticked and podium markers still ticked. However, our markers are still here. There is one more thing we need to do. So what we've got to do is add in a local script, but we can't just add it to a part. We have to add it under our starter player. But you'll notice we already had one from here on this on-client event. So what we want to do is remove this while wait here. And we're going to go into our local script. And what we're going to do is we've got our part, and that's fine. However, we want to update it every single frame. So we can add a while wait do once again, while wait 0.5 do, and we're going to need if player dot markers dot, and then let's do bouncy marker. No, we don't actually have a. We'll do game dot players dot player dot local player. That's it. There we go. Bouncy marker dot value equals true. Then what we're gonna do is we will have to call a server event to then call this client event up here. Now that sounds annoying, and it is. We can just call bouncy marker. So game.replicate storage dot marker events bouncy marker colon fire server, and we don't need to pass anything in here. Now under our bouncy marker script, we need to say game.replicate storage dot marker events bouncy marker dot on server event colon connect function, and now in here we have to pass the player, and then we want to fire the event again. Game.replicate storage dot marker events bouncy marker colon fire client, and we want to add in here when we fire the client. You'll see up here when we do it, we've got player and script.parent. Let's pass those in. And now if we go over to our local script, we then have this up here which we'll call. So if that makes sense, now let me explain that simply. Every half a second we're going to check if the player has the bouncy marker, and if they do, we're going to call this function, or not function, sorry, we're going to call this event. When that event is called inside of our bouncy marker script, we're going to refire that event but for the client, and then the client will make it invisible up here, if that makes sense. Now what we need to do is copy that if statement for every single marker we have. It's a cave marker, podium marker, and sliding marker, like so. And once again, we need to copy this script. In fact, we can just copy that there, and then go into each script, so cave marker, and add it, like so, and then change that to cave, and that to cave, and you get the gist. Do that for each script. Now this isn't the most optimized it can be, however what we're making here would only be classed as a small game. It wouldn't be classed as a large game, so there is no need to really worry about this handling. It will handle. Yeah, there's no reason to actually worry about the handling of this game. It will handle, because it's only a small game. There's not going to be much going on at once. It's kind of collecting markers every now and then, so there's not a lot going on at once. So unless of course you add a lot, but look, as you can see, the markers are now invisible, the ones that we've already collected. So, of course, if you don't want the markers to go invisible when you collect them, you just want to turn Can Collide off, you can. And then that'll save you all that script. But there we go, it saves. So that's what I wanted to show you. Now if we hit play again, 4 markers and they're all invisible. So I hope you enjoyed this video, everyone. Thank you so much all for watching. In the next episode, what we're going to do is probably start making the inventory for these. Hey everyone, today we're going to start the UI for our player index, where the player will be able to see all the markers they have got and all the markers that are available in the game. So to start, we need to go to Starter GUI and we need to add in a Screen GUI. Now what a Screen GUI is it allows you to add buttons, frames and cool like pictures and things like that onto your screen so the player can click or view. So let's add in a frame. And this is a cool little, it's kind of like a block really. It's like a square of information. We can get cool images in these frames, we can put buttons on these frames, we can really do anything. Now, this is going to be our index, so if you've ever seen an index in even like simulator games, they've got a pet index. You can kind of have an idea of what they look like. So let's position our frame here on the screen. Now, in the future, we may actually do a video on GUI, a separate video on how to make GUI and how to navigate it. But for now, we're going to rename this frame and we need to call it, well, anything really, but I'm going to call it index. That's what I'm going to give it the name index, not undex, index, like so. Okay, now the size of this, we can see, if we open this up, we currently have the size on the offset and not the scale. That is not very good because that means as we expand the screen, different devices, if we go to view quickly and, test and device, you'll see different devices don't see the UI properly. So to fix that, let's turn off device. We need to go under our size and make sure everything's on a scale and not an offset. So I'm just going to put 0.50 for the offset and then 0.50 again. And we can kind of play around with this until it's to our liking. So let's maybe give it a size like that. That will do. And perfect. Now you'll see we can snap to the center here. So that's what I'm going to do. And under this index, let's give it a color. So I'm going to give it the color blue because I think blue is quite a nice color that matches with a lot of things in Roblox. Especially with simulators, you see it quite commonly used. Now let's add in a UI corner. And we'll set the corner radius to maybe 1 and 0. Okay, that's a lot. So let's set the scale to like 0.2. Even that's a lot. Let's set the scale to 0.05. That's a bit better. Now, if we go into our index, we can add, well, first thing we want to add is image labels, I guess, or text labels. So I'm going to add in a text label. And this, you'll see in a minute, I'll set to 0.2, 0.2, 0. And rescale this to the size. So we've got 4 quadrants, so we're going to need 4 of these. You will see why in a minute. So I'm going to set this to maybe 150 by 150, like that. And I'm going to position it 25, 25, like so. And now we're going to duplicate this. And we're going to have to, that'll be 200, because you can see snapped here, that's 175 from the top. We want to add 25 to get to 200. And then I'm going to duplicate it again. We're actually going to run out of room. Now you want to do this for as many worlds as you have. Let me change the scale of these down a little bit. So I can hold shift and actually resize. So we want about that should do. So 25, so now we see that's 143. 143 plus 25 is 168. So we want that to be 168, like so. And we'll see this one is at 155 from the bottom, so we're actually going from the bottom now. So an easy thing we can do is duplicate these top 2, bring them down. These may actually need to be even smaller. So basically we just want to keep playing around with the size until they're to our liking. Okay, once you're happy with it and it's kind of there, I mean I'm not going to do it perfect, but of course you can put more time into this. We now want to rename these labels, so this will be grass. What do we actually have these? So let's go into our land, our sectors. Oh, we don't actually have names for them. Alright, so anyway, the grass, we've got desert, snow. Of course, you may have proper names for your land. I'm just kind of, and then rock. Yeah, that's just kind of what I'm going for. So anyway, so this would be grass. So I'm going to kind of give it a green color for the grass. Give it some white text. Give it a stroke transparency. White text. Scale it up. Grass. Desert. Once again, 0 stroke transparency. Make it a white text. And this will be desert. And I'm going to make it yellow. So give it a yellowy color. Also, I need to scale it. So scale. Now you can kind of see we've got this UI going. What we want to do now is in our index, we're going to add in a folder. We're going to rename this folder and we're going to call it sectors. And we can just drag these 4 texts into the sectors folder. Next, we're going to add in a new folder for, this will be grass. So let's rename this to grass. And in here, we're going to add in some frames or some actual, we're just going to need image labels. But before we do that, let's add in a frame, and I'll show you why. We're going to rename this to view. And what we're going to do is set the size to 0.10, 0.10. This will give us kind of like a rough thing, so now we can scale it along the actual scale and not the offset. So let's set it to the same size as this grass button, text, and make it go along like that. And now that we've done that, we can set the transparency to 1. Or if you want a transparency, you could have like maybe a point. Maybe you could set it at 0 and then use your pick screen color to get a color exactly the same, but make it a tiny bit darker. You could do that. Although I've just done that for the border color and not the actual color. So you could have something like that. In fact, actually, that's what I'm going to do. And then to this, I'm going to add... Now, we could add in an image label straight away. But let's go to UI. And let's get a list layout. Now what you'll see is if we add in an image button, if we go to this list layout, we want the fill direction to be horizontal. Change the horizontal alignment to center. Or maybe left, actually. Change the vertical alignment to center. And let's go for the padding for a scale of 0.1. Now you'll see, if we duplicate these, we can fit in loads of buttons. So in the grass area, how many markers have we got? I've got 4, so I only needed 4 buttons. If you have more, you may want to change your padding size, lower that down to maybe like lower, because then you can fit more in. But I'm pretty happy with 0.1. It does fit for me. Now, we could try and make this a bit more spaced out, so we could set an offset. Although I would not set offsets because it does kind of make it look a bit strange. Let's go horizontal alignment center as well, and then perfect. And in each of these images, you could have an image of your marker, which I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But first, I want to duplicate this, and this one will become desert. Duplicate it again. This one will be rock, and duplicate again. This one will be snow. And I've just realised I've not renamed the rock label to rock. Okay, and now let's go into our desert, get our view, and we're going to drag it down. Oh, we've grabbed our snow. Okay, let's drag our snow down first. Now we want to. Now can we drag our desert? This has got our rock. Okay, just pay attention to what it's grabbing down here. Now if we grab it, it's got our grass. So let's just bring our grass up, bring our desert down, and put our grass back on where it was, like that. Now we've got all of our kind of an index of what we have and what we don't. Now we can go fill these with some images. I'm not going to do that now, I'm going to do that after this video, but I'll show you how to do it. So let me close up all of these. Let me disable the screen GUI for now. What you can do is go up to a marker. If you just drag it away, what you kind of want to do is get a white background. So you could make like a box. So what you want is something like that really. And then you want to rotate it so it's flat on its side. And then you want to click top up here. You might have to rotate. Okay, so yes, a top. So we're going to have to rotate it. If we hit top, we've got to rotate it this way so it's facing upwards. And then just drag it in. Make sure this is completely white on the background. If we put it smooth plastic, it will make it even less reflective. And top, you'll see we've got a shadow here. We can go to lighting. And we can turn off global shadows. What we can then do is go down to our Windows or whatever you use, and we can search snipping tool and open that up. If you don't have snipping tool, then you can use other software. There's software out there you can screenshot. Anyway, we're going to hit new, and we're just going to snip around the area. But make sure your mode is on freeform or rectangular snip, and snip around the area. It doesn't matter if you don't get it all in. We can then file, save it, and then what we can do, we can go into some free online software such as Photopea, or Photopia, as depending on how you want to say it, or Photopea, I don't know how you meant to say it, but yeah, new project, create, and we can paste in our image here. And then we just use this magic wand to select the background and delete it. And if we delete this background as well, it will make it transparent. That's if you want it transparent. You might genuinely just want the white background. It's up to you. But once you've done that, you can export it and bring it over. What I would personally do is I would select the background, hit select inverse, and then cut out the actual layer here. So we've just got the white background. Then I'll select, deselect, paste it back in, but then center it on the screen. So snap it to the center like that. Now let's look at our screen GUI. Let's re-enable it. You'll see our buttons are squares. So let's go over to our grass view. This first button, the size is 0, 100 by 100. Now let's have a look. We're going to get scale problems. So for this image label, we need to actually resize all of these. So make sure you resize them. I'm actually going to get constraints because of the UI list. So I can't do anything about that now. That is the joys of layouts. So yeah, make sure you don't make the same mistake I did and scale them, change the size by the scale and not the offset first. Anyway, we can see the size is 100 pixels by 100 pixels. If you've done it by scale and not offset, you'll be able to see the size here. So 100 by 100. So under our Photopea, let's file new, and we want 100 by 100, white background, and let's paste in our cut out shape. We may have to scale it down a bit. We can do that by grabbing this bottom corner and just simply dragging it in. Next, we want to center it like that, save, and it may not be perfect. I've not really put a lot of time and effort, but if you get the right angle, you can line it up perfectly. Then we can file, export, PNG, and save. Okay, now back over to our image label. We can, if we want, we can actually rename this. So let's rename it to the marker. Bouncy marker with the space. And we can see the image is, actually this wasn't even meant to be the bouncy marker, was it? We want, so bouncy cave podium. This will be the podium marker. It doesn't really matter what order you do these in. Podium marker. And let's add an image, choose file, and create. It will load and then it will be in here. Now you could go up here and change the background transparency to 1, but that won't really work with an image. You'd want to go to image transparency, but then that will remove the whole image. So you can't really change the background, but you can change the color, although that will mess with the actual color. I'll just leave that as white. Anyway, once we've got all of our markers, you want to simply do that for each marker, get all your markers down, and you'll be done. And that's pretty much it. So I'm going to do the rest of my markers and I'll see you back in a minute. Okay, once you've got all of your markers, we can delete this white background. Now you may wish to add a text label to this thing here. We can set the size to 1010 and then just drag it down. And then we can give it its name. So bouncy marker, like so. Now we're actually going to do this in the script for now. But if you want to give them placeholder names, you can, which I'll do for now. So I'm going to copy that, paste it into there. And we're just going to put one in each marker and rename them. So this is cave marker. This is sliding marker and podium marker, like so. Now you'll see that it will actually kind of cover a bit of this image. If you want, you could drag them down. So select all of them, drag them down to below the image, and then it will kind of cover just like that, which is what I'm going to do. And yeah, I think that's about it really for now. Of course, the more time and effort you put into this, the better it will look. But for now, that'll do. You can fill up all of these. I'm not going to. Now, there's one more thing we need to do, which is to add a button to this here, and we'll call this close. And we're going to put it up there. I'm going to make it 50 by 50, I think, or 52 by 52. I'm going to make it red, and I'm going to change the text to white. and I'm going to make the text literally an X, scale it up, and make it bold, like that. And there we go, everyone. That is going to be my UI for now. Now, next episode, we're going to make a button to open the UI, and we're going to start programming some of this index. Right, everyone, it's time to get the programming done for this index. Let's do it. So let's go up to View and Output, just so we've got an output ready for when we test the game later. And now let's go to Starter GUI. Open up our index here. In fact, I'm going to rename this screen GUI. I'm going to give it another name. I'm going to call it Index GUI. And now we're going to open up our, let's just, you know what, we're going to add in a script into our index here. Let's add in our local script. And this is going to be a management. So we'll just rename this to management. And this is where we're going to manage our index. So what I want to happen is if they've got the marker, the actual text, so let me find it, the text here, so say they found the bouncy marker, I want the background colour of the text to turn green when they find it. So let's make that happen. So the first thing we want to do is make a button we can press to open and close this index. So let's add in a text button, and we'll rename this to open. And we're going to drag this, well first I'm going to resize it, so I'm going to make it 0.20, 0.150. Okay, that is not like a square I thought it would be. And I'm going to maybe make this 100 by 100. So just resize it till it's your liking, like so, and I'm just going to place it there. And now I'm going to change this text to index, and I'm going to scale it up. And maybe play around with the colour a bit. Not that colour, I want the actual background colour. In fact, I'm going to pick a screen colour and pick this colour here. And then I'm going to change the text colour to white. Well, I might even give it a text stroke, why not? Yeah, why not? And now we're going to add in a UI corner into this button. Okay, now let's change this radius. I'm going to make it 0.10. Now let's go in our management script, and we need to make a couple of variables. We need the close button and the open button. So local close equals script.parent.close, and then local open equals script.parent.open, because the parent of this management script is the index, the parent of that is the index GUI, and that is where our button is. So now we've got our two buttons. We need to say, let's start with open. So open dot mouse button one click connect, and then we're going to call a function. And in here we are going to, well, we're going to make the index visible, and we've also got some other code to do a bit later. So to do this, we need to say script.parent.visible equals true, because we're opening it. The script.parent is the index.visible. Now let's do the same for close. So close.mouse button one click connect, and we're going to call a function. Script.parent.visible equals false. So now we've got an index button and a close button working. And now we're going to create another function. So we're going to, we can drop those down there. I'm going to make this here. So local function, and we're going to call this function manage markers is what I'm going to call it. And let's press enter. Now what we've done here is we've made a new function. This is how you make a function, and that's what we've just done. We've made a new function. Now in here, for now, we're just going to print hi. So let's, under our open, so when we open it, we want to manage markers. Let's call manage markers. Now if we hide this index here and hit play, now this is why we've opened up the output earlier. You'll see if we hit this, it opens and it prints hi, and we can close it and keep opening it, which is just what we want. Now we're going to get into the main actual, now we're going to check for these markers. That is where this hi comes in. So in here, we're going to check for markers. So check for markers. That is what we're doing here. So let's do it. So to do that, what we want to do is, first of all, create a for loop for each of our markers. So for I, v in pairs, that is how we create a for loop. And what we want is, we want to get all of these frames here, all of these image labels under the index. So to do that, we can say for IV in pairs, script.parent, which is the index, colon get descendants. That will get every single descendant, so everything underneath the index. If you do get children, it will only get the desert, grass, rock sector. It will only get stuff directly under index. If we do get descendants, it will get everything that is under it. So then we need to put do at the end. Now the I is the index and the V is the actual object. So we want if V colon is A, and if we have a look, these are all image labels. So we want image label, spelt exactly like that. If you're not completely sure, you can click on your image label, and at the under the properties, you will see it says image label at the top here. So yeah, if it's an image label, then this is where we want to check if we have it or not. So we say v.name. Okay, so now if it's an image label, we want to check whether or not we have it. Now if you remember when we hit play, under our players we've got under our player we have a markers folder, which gives us a true or false value whether or not we've collected these markers. So let's go under our management, and we need to make a kind of like we need to compare and make sure that these markers are how they should be. Okay, so now we need to check whether our item is in our player. We need to make sure it actually exists. So just to make sure that we're not going to get any errors. So what we want to do is say if, well, first of all, let's create a local player. Local player equals game.players.local player, and we can do that because we're in a local script. That's how we access the player. We need to say if player dot markers colon find first child and then v.name, because v is our object, of course, so that'll be an image label, but the name of it, we want to get the name, because obviously these are the exact same name as these markers. We want to get the name. So to do that, we just say v.name. Then, now what this line of code does is it checks if this marker is actually inside the player. Then, if player.markers colon find first child v.name. In fact, actually, I'm going to set that to a variable first. I'm going to say local marker equals player.markers colon find first child v.name. And then we're going to say if marker.value is equal to true, then, so if we do have the marker, then we want to change the text of it. So we want to say v, because remember that is our image label. So say we've got the bouncy marker. V is our bouncy marker here. Dot text label, because we have a text label under the marker. Dot, what do we want? So we wanted to change the background color. So dot background color. And then as you can see over here, we've got a 3 on the end, so we just put 3. Equals color3.new, and this is our new color 3. So over here we've got 255, 255, 255. We want a green color, so get the green color you want. So let me go over here. I'm going to make this visible for a minute, just so we can see what we're doing. Let's get this green color. So what green color do we want? I quite like that one. So I'm just gonna copy those numbers. 12, 255, and 0 is what I'm gonna do. And then I'm gonna undo that and hide the index again. And I'm gonna paste those numbers into here. Now it's gonna tell me it is yellow. So it's going by red, green, and blue. Just ignore that. It says it's yellow. It's not yellow. We might be able to click color here. So it's coming out as yellow for some reason, so let's change it in here. Oh yeah, sorry, it's because color 3 returns a value between 0 and 1. So basically just click in here and you can change the color to how you want it under here. Anyway, that's how I want it. So if it's true, then undo that. And that should be it. I think that's everything. So I'm going to reset our data. So to do that, go into data store, and I'm going to call this tutorial 2. This will give us new data. If we hit play, I'm confident this will work. Let's click index. All these markers are white. As you can see, I've not scaled them properly in the last video. That was my mistake. Now, let's go get this marker. Hit index, and it's green. Lovely. We'll get one more, just to make sure it definitely works. Yeah, and it's green. Now, we're going to press stop, and press play again. And they should still be green. Yep. Now, there's going to be one problem. And here is the problem. We collect it, it doesn't change until we open the index. So to fix this, it's actually quite a simple fix. What we need to do is go under our management script. Okay, so the best way of fixing this is creating a while loop, basically. So while wait do, and then we're going to call manage markers. Now, you may be thinking, why did we even make this? Why do we even call manage markers under the open if we're just going to call it every, 0.03 seconds anyway? And that's because we're not. We're only going to call this every second or so. We don't need to do this literally every... By basically putting 1 in here, it's waiting 1 second each time before it calls manage markers. So it's a lot less demanding on your computer. So if we now test this, look, we can go collect our bouncy marker. Look, we can collect bouncy marker, and it will update like that. There we go. And it's a lot less demanding that way. And now, as you can see, we can jump up here, and that's it. We've collected our markers. You can do this for as many markers as you want. But for now, this will do me. So that's what I wanted to show you today. Okay, and that, everyone, is our Find the Markers game. That is it. Well done. Give yourself a pat on the back. We have made our Find the Markers game. And that's as much as there is to it. This is all the basics. So thank you for watching, everyone. And I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.